This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Isotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, and SAE Institute. You're hearing my voice right now mixed through Isotope, Ozone, and Velvet on Atom Audio monitors and headphones. Make sure to get my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com, and please check out our awesome sponsors using the links in the show notes. And please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel because it's a great way to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
Gonna happen that is somebody can't play that solo once on its own, that magically it will nail it in the recording studio, right?
Right.
Because also most of the time you are on the clock, you know, it's you gotta do this thing. I mean, you either practice it here on the clock until you get it right, or you practice at home for free, and then we only need a few takes to do it in the studio. Either way, you gotta practice that thing.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Gabe Dagrezio. Gabe started as the frontman of The New Story, an Italian touring band signed to EMI Virgin in the early 2000s. His time in the studio sparked a deep passion for recording, leading him to master performance, engineering, and production. Gabe is a skilled guitarist, songwriter, and singer who's performed thousands of shows worldwide. His background gives him a performer's sensitivity in the studio, bridging the gap between artistry and technical precision. With a Bachelor of Music in Songwriting, Contemporary Guitar, and Music Technology, he brings a well-rounded approach to recording, mixing, and coaching artists to their best performance. Now, Gabe and I met at NAMM, and I'm glad to finally have him on the show. And actually, we met a couple of years ago, and here's a great quote from Gabe I want to read to you. So this came in from Gabe. He said, we met at NAMM. I walked up to you because I listened to your podcast, and I recognized the voice, and then I looked at your badge. So that's how it all began, Rockstars. We met at NAMM. NAMM is a wonderful event where we all get to like run into each other. And, you know, as a podcaster, it's a real opportunity to actually meet the people that are listening to the show. So it's very cool. So that's how we met. And now, having listened to Gabe's music and learned more about him, I'm excited to have him on the show. So please welcome Gabe Dagrezio to Recording Studio Rockstars. Gabe, are you ready to rock, dude?
I am ready. Thank you so much for having me. That's such a pleasure. Yeah.
It's great to have you here, man. And I like the sound of your voice, too. Tell us, so I pronounced your name hopefully right, Dagrezio.
That's perfect.
It's Italian, right?
It is Italian, yeah. Originally from Milan. It's, I think it's as Italian as you can get in names, at least the sound of it. Yeah.
As Italian as you can get in names. That's great.
So, yeah, funny. I met you at NAMM, in fact, and I was just arrived to the US. That was my first NAMM, you know. I was walking around like a kid on Christmas Day, and it was a great experience.
So where are you joining us from right now?
I live in San Diego currently.
Ah, beautiful sunny San Diego.
Always sunny, 90% of the times.
Oh, really? Always sunny 90% of the times? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what drew you to San Diego? You came from Italy straight there, or like tell us about your kind of journey from, I read your intro pretty briefly there, but give us the short story in your own words of getting interested in playing music, going and studying. Where did you study? How'd you end up in San Diego?
Well, it's a kind of long and winding story, of course. But I started to play guitar and playing in band most likely because of enjoying music, as many people, but also was a good way to socialize and create community. Like I started joining little bands, forming little bands, started playing cover with friends, then began writing song, and it was late teenager, early 20s, and that was like my element, what I like to do, and so we went on and formed this band. It was called The New Story, and there was 2005, so 20 years ago. Oh my God, it was 20 years ago. that kind of dates me, and just to put it in context, at that time YouTube wasn't even there. I think it was just starting, and Facebook wasn't there. So early days of social media and YouTube, and we had this band, and we wanted to take it as far as we could at that time. And the ecosystem of the major label at that time, there was this tendency of signing a bunch of bands, and then a few will make it, a few other won't. Most likely they won't. So, and I was in one of those bands that never really made it over the top, and then after that, I continued to play with bands. Always get interested in recording and songwriting. In my own time, and then I decided to start from a journey. So I went to Australia in 2013, and mostly travel, work, and make friends with local people. Was mostly East Coast, so from Melbourne to Cairns, and I met a lot of people, but it was more of a traveling mode. And then I landed in Tasmania as part of my travels. I lived in New Zealand for a while, and I've decided to go back to music. And so that's where I applied for a scholarship at the University of Tasmania for the university program. Yeah. And I got the scholarship, which will cover part of my international fees, so it was still pretty expensive, but it was definitely a challenging time. But I did complete my degree, and while I was doing that, I met the girl that then became my wife, and then halfway I was almost finishing my degree, and she got a job offer to work as a research scholar for University of California, San Diego.
So wait, before we go to San Diego, I just have to say, to date myself and my generation, I can't help it, but for the rest of my life, when I hear Tasmania mentioned, I'm just always going to think of the Tasmanian devil in my Bugs Bunny cartoons growing up,
That's right. Yeah, that's what a lot of people rings the bell. Yeah. And funnily enough, initially in my travel, I wanted to go to Tasmania because I'm really into animals. I am really passionate about animals, and they have an incredible wildlife there. Like the camping, the outdoor scene over there is just great. And
is it like it's not tropics, it's pretty dry, or is it both?
It's at the very southern of Australia. Is an island. Is an island below Melbourne, so it's the southern point of Australia, and it gets pretty cold. Even in summer, it doesn't really get very, very warm, apart from, I would say, a few days a year. But it also, like the capital of the region, which is Hobart, it never really gets snow or freezing. Maybe sometimes, at dawn, you get some frost over the car, but it's kind of cold. it's kind of cold and humid, and the good thing that drew me to that is that a lot of nature, not so many people. Like the 85% of the land is national park. So every time you want to, and such a small island, like coast to coast, it would be probably about 4 hours to go coast to coast of winding road. But the territory is so diverse. You can get up the mountain. You can get those big forests. They have like big fern. You expect a dinosaur to come from around the corner at any time. So very, very special place.
Having just watched what's it called? Meg 2. What about the giant sharks? I can relate to that.
Okay. I didn't see
All right,
that.
so sorry, continue. So you end up in San Diego and you guys go there next.
Well, that's where we are here now. So that was mid 2021. And then, I was like fresh out of college, and I starting from scratch in a new place. Now, over my travels for many years, I did start from scratch many times over in different cities. And, so it's always a little bit scary, but having done that previously kind of give you it gives me at least the belief that, okay, I can do this. It's not going to be easy, but you've done it in the past. You can do it again in the future. Yeah.
Well, so, and how old are you now?
I am 40.
Okay. All right. So you've been working professionally for 20 years or more in music. Were you jumped right into music as a teenager? That's what you were saying?
Yeah.
So really this has just been your focus right from the get-go.
Pretty much. I think the pivotal moment was when I was 9, and my dad took me to see Paul McCartney in concert, right? That was my first ever concert, and I still have vivid images of that time. That really blew me away. And funnily enough, my dad was working at that time at the EMI press factory, like where they were pressing vinyl, but at the time it was CD. And right after we saw the concert, Paul McCartney was coming out with the live CD of that tour. So that was really what drew me in songwriting, music, and play. I was like blown away. So I started really devour records and, be the awkward person that don't socialize much on the bus going to school, but was just listen to records, a bunch of them.
Yeah. That's the beauty of music and headphones really is just that being able to have that amazing experience listening to music. I mean, for me, it was the Walkman cassette player with the tapes in it. That's how it all began. And we had those foam ones, those little spindly metal headphone holders with little foam pads on them. And then it sort of grew from there and they got better. And then it was the CD players. But it was always a bit of a challenge to bring your music with you too and be able to listen to it. Not too bad. Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I remember like the earlier CD player that didn't have a very good anti-shock system. So I did many times going around town and holding like a waiter will hold a plate carrying to a table. So
right.
kind of keeping my arm a little bit loose so to absorb all the shock so I could listen to a song without skipping. That was part of the growing up for sure.
Yeah. Now, did you get into vinyl records too? I mean, your dad was working at a pressing plant, or was it CD pressing?
Yes, we had a lot of vinyls going on in the house. None of my family has ever pursued professional career as a musician, so I'm first generation for that matters. But I say that growing up, there was a lot of passion for listening to music. And so as part of my baggage, I have a lot of Italian what is called musica leggera in Italy. A lot of songwriting, and as a child, I remember putting on my vinyl records, and then when you go into your teenage and there was the cassette and the CD, you kind of abandon. But later, in the past few years, I rediscovered listening to vinyl as a form of ritual of enjoying music.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what about, you brought up the Italian influence to songwriting and stuff like that. What for you should we know about as far as Italian composers, producers, engineers? Is there like a history of music there that got you excited about this?
Well, there was a lot of very, I would say, very innovative composer, more the composer, I would say songwriter. One of the ones that were always being present in my family is called Claudio Baglioni. I don't know if you get how to spell. I can spell it later for you, but is a dude that has been around for almost 60 years now of a career, and I really like the musical compositions and melody and lyrics that he uses. It's very easy to listen to. In a way, it can sound, I wouldn't say pop, because it's more of an old style of pop, but it sounds very easy to listen. But when you go and actually try to learn these songs, you find that it's an incredible complexity in the music, in the musical movement that he used in terms of chords inversion and the bass movement. But then it all sounds very effortless when you listen to it, and it's one of those things that I really found very fascinating about his way of writing, for sure.
So stylistically, we're talking about, and now you're making a lot of music yourself too, which I want to talk more about.
Yeah.
And I want to get into talking about your studio and stuff. But, some of the questions that I wonder about, in terms of making music now and your influences, that influence, was it somebody who was using real bands to record everything, or was it somebody that was integrating samples and kind of computer production? And what about for you now with the songs that you're writing and the music you create? How do you think about playing real instruments? Obviously you play guitar,
Yeah.
But even in the guitar world, you've got questions like, using amps versus using Sims in the computer and stuff. And then that goes for all the other instruments too, because your music has drums, I hear bass, I hear, organ parts, I hear Rhodes and Wurlitzer keyboards, and obviously a lot of vocals and harmony and stuff like that. So talk to us a little bit about the stuff that really interests you in terms of making music.
I always enjoyed listening to bands or real instrument, if you want to say. Also, I enjoy a lot of music of songwriters, but I like listening to performance by real musicians or acoustic instrument. But that's simply my taste. I don't have anything against computer soft synths, sampled elements. I like some electronic music as well. Like I think Daft Punk make great music, and it's mostly electronic, but it's very good. It's very exciting. So
is Daft Punk a European?
They're French
duo, right? French.
Yeah, they're French.
Right. Okay,
yeah. They're French. I like the integration, and in the things that I listen to, there's a lot of virtual instrument, but predominantly I always been into musicians playing an instrument. I like when I listen to something that I do while I listen to music is imagining the player performing. So I think that's a big chunk of what I do, as well as an engineer producer. For me, it's it's all about the performance, or at least
Yeah.
that's the most important thing that I want to capture.
From synths to strings to studio guitars, Complete 15 has it all. Native Instruments' flagship bundle gives you everything you need to create pro music in any genre, with cutting-edge instruments like Contact 8, Massive X, battery, guitar rig, and session guitarist for lifelike electric and acoustic guitar parts. Use our code ROCK10 for 10% off at nativeinstruments.com or get started with Complete Start totally free. Yeah, because you were talking about performing live and bringing that back into the studio. So let me just jump right into questions about that. So
Yeah.
when you're in the studio and you're talking about capturing performance, what does that mean to you? Because I think about, you have sometimes you have the band tracking together, and that's a performance you're trying to capture. Sometimes you're doing overdubs, and there's just an excitement in that moment that you need to capture a performance of.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to you?
Well, I see a big distinction between a performance, like what it means to be a good performer live compared to what it is to be a good performer in the studio, because a lot of a good performance live could also be what is your stage craft, how is your stage presence, and all that. While in the studio, it's mostly about the 3T: tune, time, and tone. So you gotta have these three things live. You gotta have these three things together, and a lot of it for the studio. I stress a lot the preparation for the performance. I think that if a good performance is happens when a musician have practiced their part long enough that it doesn't have to think about what he's playing, what his fingers are doing, or what the vocals, but it knows it so well that can just let it go, just do it and focus on the performance, on the say emotional load of it. But also depends. It's important to assess the proficiency of the performer, because there are some consumer professionals they have such a huge library of licks and chord progressions and musical gesture that they have. They are fantastic session musicians. And it sounds great. It sounds great right away.
Yeah.
Some other, especially when it's young bands that are starting out and they are started to navigate for the first time, being in the studio, recording their music, they will benefit more from some coaching. Not all musicians. Okay, that's something interesting that I that's my understanding, is that, and really anyone can contribute to a records in a way that it's musically meaningful. Doesn't need to be a hard part, but it has to be within their language, within their abilities at the time that it's recording. I don't think it's gonna happen that if somebody can't play that solo once on its own, that magically it will nail it in the recording studio, right?
Right. Right.
Because also most of the time you are on the clock, it's you got to do this thing. You either practice it here on the clock until you get it right, or you practice at home for free, and then we only need a few takes to do it in the studio. Either way, you got to practice that thing.
Right. Well, and there's that difference between on a live show, it's like you said, you need to do your homework. You need to know the song, know the material, so that you can get up there and perform it well. And there is an element of playing something really well live, but there's also more to it. There's like personality and entertaining and like
Absolutely.
being I'm punching my lights here and being and just giving an audience something interesting to listen to or look at, and I guess that varies. I mean, in some cases, as an audience, you want to watch a performance on a stage and think, I just want to hear that they deliver it really well. I don't care if they, smile at me and dance around. And some people, I think, really like music where everybody smiles and dances around, and I hate to say it, but some people don't really care if they perform it very well. Because I can, think about the times you've gone to see live shows and the singing is like, you just hear it and you're like, oh my God, it's out of tune. Everything's out of tune. Come on.
Yeah, that happens too. And also when you see a live show, it usually is an audio visual type of stimulation, because especially if you see, touring artists that's not the local band, they have a whole visual spectacle. And that's the other thing, that if like a little mistake, if you want live, it will pass by, unless it's very, very bad, blatantly. Everybody can realize there was a bad mistake, but it goes and somebody notices, somebody doesn't. But it's also the beauty of playing live. It's you're there with the person you like the music and it's playing for you, and you pay the ticket. Just enjoy the ride. And if it's not a train wreck and that's some imprecision here and there, that's fine. They're human. But when you're making a record, you are doing something that it's meant to be for posterity and to be archived and be available forever. So you try to get the best possible version of it that you can, and whether it's so from the songwriting to probably the end of mixing, I see it at all the process of making a record. It all adds up step by step, and you want to get every step as good as you can. Although ideal is like an utopia that you never really get everything 100% right, but you have to do your best to get as close as possible to do it right. And
I know what you mean. Yeah. It's like, what they say about records. Your records are never really finished; they're just abandoned.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, it's also, it comes to a point. Well, okay, that's what it is, and so I think that's my take on performance. But also, it's important to not be too rigid about what makes a good performance and what not, because sometimes, it makes me think about the classic edited drums, right? You can have a good drummer that plays, and you have the Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper session, whatever, with the click. And even with the best drummer, not everything is on the grid, and nor it should, right? So that's a fine balance between something that it's off the grid or off tune if it's a singer, but still have a musical significance, or if something is a mistake. So that's also that part of balancing act, or just gauging and evaluating.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let me rewind a little bit, because I'd love to ask you about your studio. Tell us about your world now. Do you have a studio that is you call your own? Do you have like a home studio and then go to other studios? On your website, for example, there are some wonderful pictures of you sitting in the control room and working on records. And so we'd love to just hear more about that.
Yeah, so that picture, which is the main picture, it was taken in the Hedberg studio within the University of Tasmania down in Tasmania. Yeah, that's the board where I learn my craft. And it's an API legacy. It was a brand new 48 channel API legacy, and that's where I learned the ropes. And that's thanks of my teachers at that time. So big shout to Stuart Long, Robert Long, and Lawrence Maddy, who helped me out. So that's where I learned, and as soon as I moved to the US. I started, I came here and okay, I just have a degree. Let's find out and let's find a job. How naive, right? And so I started sending my CV, all my discography and whatever, all my portfolio to all the studio around, and heard nothing for months until one studio responded me, and I started working with them, and I ended up being basically the lead engineer for about 3 years. And
that's great.
That's where I really had the opportunity to work with a lot of artists, learn all about analog gear, but also I jumped in to this studio, which basically it was a startup and needed to be put in place. They have a fairly random analog gear, a Trident 78 board, very nice, but nothing was connected via patch bay. Nothing was really working as it could, and so I took on the job, and without really knowing, I've designed the wiring I designed the patch bay. I did all the connection. I did all the interaction between the converter, like get the computer to talk with the hardware and all that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the studio these days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of time spent just trying to get the computer stuff to work.
That's right. And the Pro Tools crashing every single time. And so I took on this challenge for a while, and then I came to a point where I decided that I wanted to try something else. So now at the moment I work completely freelance. I find my clients and I work with them, and I use a couple of studios in town that are very great, and I have a mixing setup at home, so I can mix in the box. Just I think today is fine. I don't feel the need to use a big control room. So I have my setup, which is accurate at home. And then when I need to record, when I have some project going on, I use either rarefied recording owned by Roy Silverstein, or Pacific Beat recording owned by Alan Sanderson in town. Those are my two to-go studios. They have great rooms and great gear, and those guys are amazing, and really happy to be part of the scene. And also I've joined the Audio Engineering Society as soon as I arrived, so that helped me start building a network, because it's so important, especially in this industry.
At iZotope, mixing and mastering just got even smarter. Velvet gives you silky vocals with sibilant slurn de-essing, dynamic tone shaping, and D-click, all in one plugin. And Ozone 11 now includes clarity, upward compression, and AI-powered stem focus to help you master like a pro. Use code ROCK10 for 10% off Ozone or any of iZotope's incredible plugins at iZotope.com. Let's talk more about your mixing in the box setup. So I think that will obviously resonate with a lot of listeners. It's just that idea of, look, I can't afford a big fancy studio, but I can do the computer thing. And there's so much that's possible with so little right now that it's, there's no excuse not to start making records, really, to be honest.
Right.
And so with that in mind, what are some of the essential tools that you feel like you have to be able to mix that way and make music that way?
Well, I think the first part that needs to be taken care of is the monitoring system. Like, you want to make sure that what you hear is reliable. You don't want big bump or dips in your mixing, because that will affect your decision. And then on the other end, it's a craft where you keep learning all the time, and I have been in a situation where maybe you're teaching a class and you are in the class with Logic and you only have the stock plugin in Logic, so how do you use them? So it's I think the most important part of this setup, but still learning, so I might be wrong, but it's really learning what you are hearing and what to listen to when you are listening to a record, and then really find ways to train your ears. I got a bunch of plugins that I collected around like over the years. Some of them are analog emulations, and they really came a long way. Some other are tools that do digital things that are not so easy to do in the analog world. So I try to bridge those two worlds using the tools that I need. And I could list all the plugins that I use if that
No,
helps.
you don't have to do a giant list of plugins.
Yeah.
I just mean like, so you've got plugins, but you say monitors, but like, are there specific monitors that you find useful? Was it hard to set them up where they work for you? Do you have favorite headphones that you use? Any of those kind of things?
Yeah, I have used now for years the Steven Slate VSX. I have been using them, and those are the headphones that do the room simulation. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So they have a proprietary headphones that you buy, and it comes with the plugin. So you, at the same time, you buy the hardware and the software. They go together. And what they have done is they modeled a bunch of listening spaces. There will be some great control room from great studios, but also, the car, the disco club, the phone, the boombox, and they made binaural models of this. And so when you listen to them, you have a good representation of how this room sounds like. And I think it's a great solution. It's a great breakthrough because allows me to really be very mobile at work with a laptop and a laptop, and you can be anywhere. And also that's where I do the big bulk of the mixing, and then have a couple of friends' place or one of these studios to just check that what it is all right, because of course you want also some air to move. But as I said, I only been here for a couple of years, for a few years, and I'm starting out. So you kind of have to be creative and figure out what's the best thing you can do with the resources you have.
Yeah.
The space you
have. So now,
available.
when you're doing these virtual rooms, did you find that a particular studio was your favorite, or do you just like have a few and you actually switch rooms and virtually to do a mix check?
Yeah. So that's I think that's a lot of personal preference, but I like the simulation of the Energy Studio with the NS10. There's also another studio. It's called Zuma. They have Adam Audio, and I also switched through after all of this. Room simulation have the far field, the near field, and the midfield monitor, so you can switch around, and it allows you also to do the car check without going to the car, right? Without exporting, going to the car and listen. So it's a very good product, and for me, I honestly don't know if it's the same as having a good listening environment with good speaker, but also not everybody can afford that, can have that. So it's the best next thing, and I think as opposite of purely mixing headphones, you still have a little bit of crosstalk between your left ear, your right ear,
right,
and you have a better a better simulation of how like time-based effects will behave in a real room. And I noticed that if I take it to a point where I'm happy with the mix and I pass it on to, it generally get much less notes in that case. And so I
Cool.
suppose it's working.
So much less notes than if you had just mixed in headphones alone?
Yeah, or if you have mix in a room that is not accurate, I would say.
Yeah. So when you're, in other words, even mixing on your speakers in a home studio setting, you found that mixing in the virtual room simulator headphones gave you a better end result right away initially than trying to mix on the speakers. So that's cool to hear.
It is cool. I don't know if I would argue that working on those would be better than having nice speaker in a nice room. But given if it's impossible to have nice speaker in a nice room, that would be better than doing in a bedroom with bad speaker, or even a bedroom with good speakers in my perception of the problem.
Right, because speakers in a non, in a room that has anomalies in it is just going to create all kinds of weird frequency bumps and confusion and stuff like that. Whereas headphones with the room simulator, even if it's not as ideal as a really nice studio with really great, monitors, at least it's giving you something that will help you make smarter decisions. Because a lot of the times, what we're hearing, we think about this listening on speakers, we think about listening in headphones, we think about all this fanciness that goes with it. But the bottom line is we're just trying to decide, should we turn this knob up to here or up to there, or should we leave the knob alone? That's
exactly
basically
right.
what it boils down to. So it's like having stuff that helps you make a decision about things and feel like you have some sense of when to stop, when to make an action and when to not make an action with relation to the music, balancing things, EQing, compression, all that. So that's cool, man.
Yeah, thanks.
And then you mentioned AES too, joining AES. So tell us about that for just a minute. So, what does that mean? Because I don't know that everybody thinks about that. I don't know everybody in a city realizes that they can even do that. Like if they didn't go to school, maybe they didn't realize that they could still join AES, How does that work? What do you know about that? And what are the benefits? Like what is AES to you as somebody who's joining it?
Yeah, so the AES, it's, for the listeners, the Audio Engineering Society. And for me, I started hearing about that pretty much the same NAMM that we met. And I was going around talking with people, and I remember somebody recommending me, hey, if you want to find good resources for learning, because that was one of my main concerns. I want to learn this a lot, and I am not very sure where are the reputable sources. They're not, right? And
the reputable sources, yeah.
Reputable sources, like
yeah.
You can.
It's funny because it almost sounded like refutable, which would be the opposite. That's why I wanted to clarify that. That's what I'm here for. I get your back.
Yeah. So, and so I just signed up for the membership, pay my dues to be a member. So I started receiving the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
And soon after I joined, probably the first or second newsletter, there was, I read through it right at the very bottom of the emails, there was a proposed meetup for, I don't remember the exact wording, for a San Diego section starting out. If you're interested, just text me an email. So I said, yeah, why not? I'm in San Diego. I think that especially for what we are trying to do, being part of a community is super important. It's like we all support each other. Just the reason why we're here is because we started making community, and you've been so kind to inviting me to the event after the NAMM, and so I met a lot of peer, and that's great. You know, that makes me happy, make me feel part.
Oh, that's
of
right.
something.
You came to one of our Recording Studio Rockstars meetups at NAMM, right?
Yeah. That was
that was
super
a lot of
happy.
fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and so then I joined and I reached out to Steve Barsotti, which is now the chair. But at that time, I figured out they was just forming the San Diego session, right? I was like, all right, we're just collecting interest. Yeah, all right, I'm down. And so we meet up in a pub and started talking. And then we organized like a Zoom session, and we prepared the documentation to submit to the mothership. Do you say mothership?
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds good to me. I like that.
Yeah. To the mothership of AES to start a new section in San Diego. So we started that. And
as Captain Beefheart would say, it's the mothership. The mothership.
It's the mothership. Yeah. So we are definitely non-exclusive. So anybody can come to our event. We don't care whether one is a member or not. And we do meet up for other professionals in the industry. Sometimes it's just a social meetup, or sometimes we do studio tour, or we organize events like in studios. And a lot of the members are also teachers in local colleges. So we also do career panels with the industry speaker, industry guests, or music scoring for films, or room acoustics, or we did this good event in a studio called Singing Serpent in San Diego, where we invited local hardware builders, and they presented some of their products, and we talk about, and it's all very nerdy. So we catch up and talk about nerdy stuff that we love.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I remember joining when I was a student, and then coming out of school and going to meetings when I was in school. And the journals get really technical. You know, they can have stuff that I think anybody can kind of understand, and then they've got stuff that's like very deep technical. There were fascinating things. I went to a demonstration in Nashville, and they were presenting this new format that was going to be really interesting, because the file size for digital audio would be really small, and they set it up, and you could do a listening test, and they'd play two different versions, and they'd say, you know, can you hear the difference? And it had to do with like masking the frequencies that were being masked they decided, okay, well, we don't need to represent these, so it's less information. I think that's the way that I remember them describing it. And it was the introduction of the MP3 and the mini disc.
Wow, yeah.
So I was sitting in a room with all these people listening to these.
Oh my God!
I'm like,
you saw it happening, right?
Yeah. So it's very cool. And then getting together, and then more recently, going and seeing a presentation about the history of Telarc Digital, which was an audiophile record label that did these incredible orchestral recordings, and then went on to do jazz and blues and everything. And so we're hearing, you know, the earliest digital recordings from the 1970s, and they just sound gorgeous, you know, and you're like, how, what? You know, it's like all the time we were complaining about, you know, cheap digital stuff, and you guys were doing that in the 70s. You know, of course, it wasn't cheap digital stuff they were using, but so I encourage anybody to go check out the Audio Engineering Society. And I don't know how many cities they're in. They're in a lot. You know, I know even in St. Louis, where I was, they would have one. They certainly have them in Nashville. They got them in San Diego, Los Angeles, all the big cities, and all around the world too.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch. We did an event last year with the, I think, Baltic Society. It was a collaboration, and we had as a guest, we had David Royer from Royer Microphones, and I don't remember the name, escapes me. The original designer of the Blue microphones, and they were having.
Oh, cool.
they were having a very interesting discussion about microphones design and the state of the art, and that was in collaboration with the Baltic section, so that was pretty fun. It was
Awesome.
some crazy AM time in the morning or something. It was fun.
Oh yeah, right. Or very early in the day.
Yeah.
Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry. From studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional-grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Howdy, Rockstars. We're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of the show. I'm joined today by Gabe Dagrezio, if I said
Perfect.
that again right. Dagrezio, here on Recording Studio Rockstars. Gabe, are you ready to jam, dude?
I am ready to jam. You know, jamming is always a little bit scary to me because you don't know what to expect.
Really? How so?
Right?
I mean, you're a guitar player. You're a good guitar player too.
Yeah, it kind of also gets you nervous because you don't know what you're getting. I think it would be, a little bit of imposter syndrome or just the idea of improv. It also, also includes, at least for me, the kind of like a bit of a fear in a sense. It's like a little bit intimidating. And then once you jump in, it's fine.
Well, what does jamming mean to you? I mean, you studied guitar, so does that mean sitting in on a jazz session where you have to know the songs already, or does it mean making stuff up? Like, what does it mean to you?
Well, it depends on the contest, but in school, where I study contemporary guitar, jamming, they will pick up a jazz standard, whether it's the...
Right, that would scare the shit out of me too.
A jazz standard, and then you got when your turn comes, you have to play a solo or lead and following all the chord progression. So, and in jazz, the chord progression don't sit on a single scale. Like sometimes they use the secondary dominant modulation, tritone substitution. So you kind of have to know your scale, your arpeggio, your modes, and be able to follow that as the song goes through, like in real time improvising. And that's scary. That's very scary because it's like it's very hard. It's very hard.
Well, and the other hard part too can be that jazz progressions they're just complex anyway, and they move quickly, and the chart is sort of, you might have sort of a old Xerox copy of a chart in front of you, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're expected to just know it. And when somebody takes a solo, the rest of the band, if they're good at comping behind a soloist, then they tend to kind of like make space.
Draw.
So it's almost like the chords aren't always there for you to know what to play over. You have to know it in your head or something like that, right?
Yeah, they drop. You're like on the hot seat. It's the spotlight, and now you got to do it. And sometimes using if you're familiar with I'm familiar with the tune that I'm singing, and I know I always struggled in those sessions, the performance lesson, to already have a strong connection to the chords that I'm seeing on the paper that I need to follow with, and translating that into hands like right away. And especially if you are then soloing and then you're working with scales and arpeggios and licks, that becomes quite hard. That's the scary part.
Yeah. Well, when I think about jamming, I just think about playing with somebody else in the studio and just noodling around, just making stuff up on the spot. That's sort of
that's fun then.
What's fun for me. So it's interesting, yeah, because I do use that term on the podcast, and then it occurs to me that it's a different definition for everybody. Everybody sort of has a different meaning to it.
Yeah,
and I've learned stuff like I've learned that it's a lot easier to jam and make things up if it's just two people than it is if it's three people. Because as soon as it's three people, it feels like you have to everybody has to know what the other people are playing. Maybe not. Maybe if you can hear each other really well, it's not so bad, but it gets trickier. And then, if there's a whole song structure, then it feels a little bit more like what you described, where you're like, okay, now I have to think about what we're doing. And it's fun to just make stuff up and discover. I like the discovery, the fast discovery. Yeah. I find it's really good for songwriting ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about you? Now, when it comes to songwriting for you, what are, because you've got a whole discography. So Rockstars, we have Gabe's mix reel. I think it's your production work, and then a bunch of your original material. There's SoundCloud links, which will be in the show notes, so you can go check that stuff out.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you've got some cool stuff in there and some great musical ideas, particularly, I think. At least that's what really struck me too.
Thank you.
What do you feel like your songwriting process is? How do you come up with new song ideas and then go in and make these complex arrangements?
So I always like to work with other musicians. I always been in bands for the most part, having an original project. And I think that oftentimes is, I am just noodling around with the guitar, and maybe I'm doing some guitar studies or whatever, practicing, and I kind of loosen up a little, and I bump into some small nuggets of chord progression, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And then it's kind of one thing lead to another, and I work on, generally a first section appears, and then you have another section, and then it kind of slowly percolates and develop. And by the time I introduce that to the musicians that I work with, I give them...
So you're already working on something on your own before you take it to the musicians and show them?
Yeah, I think it starts on my own, that I'm practicing some stuff, and I start hearing a vague arrangement of the things, but it's usually the people that I'm playing with informs a lot of what I come up with, because I have an understanding of their styles, and I'm like, hey, something like that is just trying of not getting the language on the way, and I don't even want to tell other very competent musicians what to play. It's like, like contribute to this.
Now, do you keep this whole idea of a song entirely in your head the whole time, or are you using voice memos? Do you demo it into... You said you use Logic a bunch, is that right?
I started with Logic, but then over the years I switched to Pro Tools, and that's what I use most.
Do you start sketching out your song ideas in Pro Tools before you...
No, I think the notes on my phone are the most populated. The audio memo, whatever they're called.
Voice memo, yeah.
Yeah,
if you're on an iPhone, yeah.
Yeah, voice memo would be the... Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. We probably have a little bit of a delay. Rockstars, if you're ever wondering, that's what this is. It's the internet gives us a delay, so sometimes we pause at the same time and start talking at the same time. You go ahead. You're the guest, Gabe. You go ahead.
Okay, go. So I start. So the first time it's like, okay, I got this idea. I got to record that before I forget it, right? That's. I don't know how many ideas have gone forever because I didn't do that, and then when you have a nuggets of a song, given a section, you present it to the to the musicians, just give them a chord progression and a rough idea of the style that you go into, and mumbling some fake English words that kind of have the sounds.
Well, now why not in Italian? Why not write in Italian?
That's a good question. The Italian language flows much different from the compared to the English language musically, and that's.
Would you say that sentence to us in Italian?
Sì, ok. La lingua inglese comparata alla lingua italiana suona molto diversa quando la metti in musica.
That's great, man. That is very musical, actually.
And yeah, thanks. And the reason it's because most English words have the accent on the last syllable. So that kind of works musically when you go towards the end of the line, right? Toward the end of the line. While most, as a normal, the average Italian words have the accent on the second last syllable. So that makes it sound musically different when you write it down.
Yeah. So, your name, Dagrezio.
Yeah.
I guess the accent is on the E. Maybe that's different in a name than what you're describing. But that means that the rhythm of music might feel a little bit different, the way it's going with the words. What is an example of that to you? Or is there something that comes to mind? Is that something that you typically hear in, I don't know, in Italian opera, or are there other Italian musical styles, folk styles, and even rock styles that take advantage of that?
Well, a lot of artists, they tend to truncate the word at the end, so you can still understand that have the accent at the end, which is what it's called. I don't know if it's like a artistic license they take to modify slightly the words, but I remember feeling this very strongly when on the second record that we did for EMI, so the label wanted us strongly to have some Italian songs, right? Some songs in Italian, which we were trying to appeal to a more international, broad market. Europe for sure, and if possible, even the States, Canada, Asia, Australia, whatever. And I really had a hard time to making the words fit within the musicality that I have in my ears for that songs with Italian words.
Right.
And I was very, very puzzling to me at that point. So I don't have on the spot, I don't have an example for you.
No, I got one for you. So it's like we're rocking the mic with Gabe Dagrezio. Like that? You just drop the Zio? Is that how it works?
That could work, yeah.
Let's see, what was my Lid Shaw? I don't know. All right, well, cool, man. Well, that's fascinating. I never knew that, and I never thought about that. And it really evokes a curiosity in me about that idea of the way music works, depending on the language that we're coming from, because I think music does evolve from languages, and I think it must be, connected to the way we put words together. And so thinking about how different languages in different countries, could evoke a different sense of musicality. We've all got a beating heart, so we all have, there's all like the same kind of pulse reference in things that we do. And, I'm sure we have different meters that we use, whether it's 4/4 time and 3/4 time and stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with just, how our body moves, walking, running, things like that.
Yeah, a lot of it does. And if you think of Eastern music, more that is not our Western contemporary, for example, the Eastern languages, the sound the way they pronounce the word, like if it's the way the tone, those are tonal languages. So the way they say a certain letter affects the meaning of that letter, and that's
Right.
why, and so it's part of their understanding of the way they communicate, and
very
I
much
think
so
that,
in Asia, for example, like
yeah,
Mandarin, all about
yeah,
that.
and if you think that's why their traditional music sounds so different, that they have different scale, a reference scale, or different notation, and that's all very fascinating. I remember, I don't know, did you ever see the Harvard lecture by Leonard Bernstein? It was a
No,
series.
tell us about that.
It was something that I bumped into while I was studying. Actually, I got for a while very passionate about equal temperament, and the fact that it really is a compromise to make music work over.
Yeah.
So that allows you to basically tune a piano that works in every scale.
You don't need to play guitar to sound like a pro. Session guitarist from Native Instruments delivers hundreds of lifelike guitar performances, both electric and acoustic, right inside Contact. Whether you're laying down rockin' electric riffs or warm acoustic beds, you'll get 154 electric guitar patterns and over 250 acoustic guitar grooves for strumming and fingerpicking, all grouped into song-ready presets. Dial in recording quality tone with built-in amps, cabinets, mic modeling, and effects. You can drag and drop MIDI into your tracks effortlessly, then tweak tempo, tuning, and feel to fit your song. And with new session packs on the way, you'll never run out of inspiration. Visit nativeinstruments.com, use the code ROCK10 for 10% off, and bring full guitar performances to your next track. No more blisters on your fingers. When you learn about equal temper tuning, you learn that everything is equally out of tune.
Exactly. You learn that your electric guitar will never be totally tuned right? Which is, which I found, it's one of those information that you might skim through, but then when you are in the studio and you realize that your guitar sounds good on a chord and sounds out of tune on another, then you kind of see that this could be what causes, all the modified overtone, or the modification in the scale ratio by the equal temperament make a big difference. So I think I digress here. What we were talking about?
No, it's great. I love that stuff. I mean, maybe we do because we're getting into sort of theoretical music stuff, but I do feel like that's at the core of what we're all doing in the studio and tuning is so crucial. I mean, really, you mentioned the 3 T's, the 3T, tuning, time, and tone, right? So tuning is all that effort we put into trying to make stuff sound good in the studio, whatever it is, whether it's tuning the guitar right, whether it's making sure your piano's in tune. Maybe you want your piano out of tune and that makes the song feel right. Singing and harmony and like how we respond to somebody's singing voice and whether we think they sound good or bad to us, whether it hits us in tune or out of tune, harmonies. I think the tuning applies to all the technical decisions and the way we like or don't like certain things. So harmonic content, harmonic information when we're mixing, it's all tuning, it's overtones. It's, it's overtones that feel in tune or out of tune and sound good to us when we, hear more of them or less of them. And so I think it's actually quite relevant.
Yeah, it is. Another thing that I was reading when I was in university, a lot of like journal paper, scientific papers, and there was this article that was very fascinating. I don't remember who wrote it, but it was an analysis on how the more you increase the distortion in the guitar tone, and the more you have to play simple chords like power chord, or because to sound good, because the more you increase the the distortion, the more you raise the level of the overtones. And if you're playing, a 7 flat 9, all those overtones up above will go like clashing very hard in the upper harmonics, and they will sound not pleasant, which goes back to how powerful is the power chord, right?
Exactly. And, I've noticed, so like thirds, it can be very tricky to put a third in there sometimes with the right kind of distortions. I've noticed when you use fuzz, sometimes you can't even do a power chord.
I noticed that.
Sometimes all you can do is just use a single note because there's just so many overtones in it. There's no room for any harmony.
That's right. And also you have like some distortion to give you like the odd harmonic, some had the even, and so it's kind of the amp responds differently, like the way.
Yeah. So let's break that down for a sec. So because sometimes that those sound like technical jargon. They sound like technical terminology, but they're not. They're so straightforward. Like even harmonics. The second harmonic is an even harmonic, and that is that's an octave above.
I think so.
The note. So if you start, and this is a great. I was just doing this experiment this morning. I'm telling you, this stuff is super.
All right, that's so cool,
like I have. So here's a tip for you, Rockstars. If you have an old iPhone or an old Android phone or whatever, just sitting around, you're like, what do I do with this thing anymore? I mean, I can't. It's not worth anything to sell. I can't really use it for anything, but it still functions. So I have an old iPhone 5 in the studio, and I actually have a used computer place here. Capital City Computers, if you happen to be in Nashville, it's a great place. Go say hi to Zach there. Tell him Lidge sent you. And they, there's places like this all over the place with the old phones, and they do repairs and stuff like that. But like, so for example, you can go get an old iPhone 5 for next to nothing at a place like that. You're not necessarily going to use it for taking phone calls, although I suppose you probably still could, but you can load apps on it. So a really interesting app to have in the studio and be able to use is the SPL meter. And there's a bunch of them out there. And I don't even remember what the one I've got is called, Decibel or something like that, or DB SPL or something like that. And it's and so I'll just like load that up on a little clip in my mix position in the studio, and it's always sitting right in front of me, and it's the only app that I have open on there, and you can just keep it plugged in all the time. And it's a great way to reuse that phone, and then it just uses the built-in mic in the phone, so you've always got like a level readout for knowing how loud you're mixing in the studio. And this is a long preamble. I'm getting to the tuning part. So you've got that, but down at the bottom, it also has the frequency readout. So what's interesting to me is it doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to be like, how can you do a frequency measurement with an iPhone speaker? Because we're not trying to like shoot out the room. You're just measuring. You can just see what frequencies are happening in that moment. So like if you're playing an instrument, you can play any instrument, it's coming out of the speakers, and you just glance down at your phone and there's a little frequency readout, and you can see the fundamental and you can see the overtone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I was
it's like a graph. It's like a little graph.
It's just like a little, little chart, or, like I don't even know what to call it, a graph. Yeah. A spectrograph. I guess that's what you call it. Yeah. Spectrograph. And so, even singing a note, you can sing a note, look at your phone, and you can see that fundamental, and then you can see the first harmonic, and then you can see the second harmonic, and you might not see the notes because it might display with notes depending on what app you have actually, but it'll show you the frequencies. So that was really fascinating too, because then you can sing a note or play a note on an instrument or a guitar and just look at it, and you can see like, oh, that's where the fundamental of this note is. That's where it actually is for my mix. That's where it is in the whole frequency spectrum, And I noticed that when I whistle, which, I don't know if that'll actually show up after the mixing and stuff, but if I whistled, I could see that exact note where it was, and it was right about 1K, It's like 1K to 2K. And so stuff like that is really fascinating to me. And it's a great way to understand the tuning and also understand the harmonics. And so like when you think about harmonics in terms of the notes on a piano, then a first harmonic would be an octave up. And I think the second harmonic is the fifth. But then the third harmonic, no, wait, am I getting that wrong? Is the first the root note and the second is the octave?
I think you're right. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you're right. Yeah, there would be the first the octave and the second, the fifth, and then again the octave.
Yeah, and despite, whether we remember the exact ones or not, the point is, as it goes up, the octave, or excuse me, as the harmonics are layered on top of this fundamental note that we're singing or playing, or the one that we're, interested in, and as they go up the scale, they start landing on like a wide variety of notes. And some of those notes sound like they're part of a major, scale. Some of them might sound like they're part of a minor scale. Some of them sound like they're wacky note choices. And so when you're talking about the distortion, you're basically saying, here's the fundamental, here's all those harmonics that are extending above it. And the distortion is taking all those harmonics and turning them way up.
That's right.
And so now all of a sudden, all these weirdo notes are starting to come into the picture. And maybe on the single note, there's no weirdo notes in the harmonics, but when you add the harmony, all of a sudden you've got stuff where it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense as a chord up here. I think that's the way to think about it. Would you agree, Gabe?
I think, yeah. I think that some will work. And that's, the different overtones that you have there also what determines the timbre?
Yeah, the timbre,
instrument.
Exactly.
The timbre of the instrument. So some work well together, some a little bit less. And but yeah, I think the article that I was referring to was exactly saying that if you have like this very complex chord on a high distortion, you have a bunch of clashing things in the top end that it's most likely not going to sound very consonant unless what you're trying to achieve is something very, edgy and disturbing that might work fine,
Right. And so to use the musical terminology, consonant is essentially a pleasing harmonic, harmony between two notes, and a dissonance is displeasing harmony, something that sounds edgy and harsh. But sometimes we need a little bit of all of it, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's cool. Yeah.
All right, so let me jump to another topic here. You moved to San Diego. You came from another country. You've moved around a bunch. You did that in some of your younger years, moving to a new place. And so, what have you? What do you want to say about the challenges of coming to a new city, a new country, and trying to like find your place professionally, find your place in the music scene? What have you learned about that? What has gone well for you? What has not gone well? And then, what advice do you have for other people who are thinking about making a move?
Yeah. So, I think I see myself in a sense just starting out. I usually during your show you go with the question towards the end. If you can give like a suggestion to your younger you. So I'm the younger me, and I'm still learning the whole thing. Really, I haven't done it for long, but I recognize that one of the things that are very important in carving out your space in an audio career as a producer, it has a lot to do with the network that you have, the connection, and be part of a community, I would say.
Yeah.
So community is huge. And starting out fresh in a new place, in a new continent, really it has its own challenges. You have to constantly get out there and let people know that you exist first. And once they know that you exist, that they got to know they got to figure out that you can do a good job and then be part of a community. And once you start supporting the community supports you back, which is great. So I think one of the challenges is really having patience that nothing is really going to happen overnight. And that's what I keep repeating myself, because I have that thing of wanting to achieve my goal as soon as possible, but that doesn't happen overnight. It has never happened overnight. So it is important to understand that and don't expect big results immediately, but at the same time, head down and continue chipping away. I think that for me personally, I started, I made the switch from performing to when I was at the college with that API. I accidentally got really into recording. I was like, you know what? I prefer doing this than performing, right? So
yeah, me too.
Yes, and so I got the studio back. So I'm not only, and I jumped in the industry in 2021, say, right? So it's not only after the golden age of the record industry, it's behind us, but also I'm not 20 years old now, right, anymore. So it is. I had this urgency, like this great urgency I need to catch up. I need to catch up with everything that I've been missing out. For example, I never worked with tape. I've encountered. I use it a little bit in when it was in the college. We have a tape machine and I run the master, but I never had the experience of working with tape. Like when I started recording, Pro Tools was already there. Like most of the things were already there. And I have this urgency of catching up with all the things that I've been missing in the past. And there have been occasions like, lying in bed before going to bed and my wife is next to me reading a novel, a book, and I'm reading, the user manual for the 1176. And loved it, I loved it.
As you should be.
Yeah, as you should be. Like, oh my God, far out. This is so cool.
iZotope is truly amazing for mixing and mastering your music. Check out the new iZotope Velvet plugin featuring intelligent sibilance learn de-essing that automatically detects harsh frequencies, dynamic tone shaping with lift and tame controls, and transparent declick to clean up mouth noises, pops, and clicks. All in one easy plugin for polished professional vocals. And now Ozone 11 takes your mastering game even further with the new Clarity module for adaptive spectral enhancement, upward compression in the maximizer for increased punch without losing dynamics, and stem focus to process individual elements like vocals or drums with surgical precision. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off Velvet, Ozone, or any fantastic plugin at iZotope.com.
I think the challenge it's also understanding that it's a very complex craft. It is true that everybody can learn it and do it, but that's a lot of things that you need to know and account for at the same time when you make any decision, whether it's mixing or recording. Especially if you're doing on the clock, you got to account to many little notions that you need to understand before making the right decision. And and that of course presents challenges. That's a career choice, and making a choice would mean at the same time exclude some alternatives. You kind of have to commit into something and commit at getting better. Now, personally, I think that my first concern is to getting good at what I am, what I'm doing, to getting good at that, which I am continue learning every day. And it's great and it's very important. And secondly, just introduce yourself to the community and learn from other musicians, from the whatever is the Engineering Society or going to NAMM, and meet people like yourself and really become part of the community and patients.
Yeah. Have you found some really good online communities too?
Yeah.
Have you joined some others?
Yeah, I looked at, like for instance, I listen a lot to Recording Studio Rockstar. That's one of the resources where you have great professionals that has an amazing career and a great discovery, and you and usually they're just very transparent. They tell what they think, and you can learn a lot out of it. Like every time, I hardly even listen to music when I'm driving. I'm listening to podcasts and try to learn from the professionals any way you can. Some resources are free, like listening to Recording Studio Studio Rockstars, or some other are behind a paywall. I've been a member of Mix with the Masters for a while. That's always that's always something that you can learn from anyone. And I think
there's community within that as well, so you can have conversations with people online, or no?
Yeah. I didn't use that feature all that much. I'm more listening to the videos and get notions and information. And there's also a lot of misinformation or questionable information that might not be so reliable. And
that's one of the that's one of the funny things about what we do is there's certainly technical stuff that has right answers and wrong interpretations at times, but it's also an art form, so it's like there's different perspectives on the ways to do things. And so it's great to have a variety of guests on the podcast that can talk about all these different things and contradict each other too. And I've had listeners tell me, it's like, oh, it's really great. Like I hear somebody say like, this is the way to do it. And I hear somebody else say like, no way, So it's great to like get all those perspectives. And then, I think ultimately we just take what works for us from all that information, and we develop our own style of doing things. And, it's also funny how even on the technical side of things, there are certainly elements of technical stuff that are right and wrong. But even in technology, even in the technical side of things, there's interpretations, I don't have an example off the top of my head, but just thinking about it, I think about the ways that people interpret data and interpret how things work and the functionality of stuff. And, in the end, it still comes down to that same thing, right? If we're still turning a knob until we're like, that's good. Should I turn it some more? Should I turn it less? Is that good? Does it rock? Do I like it? Okay, cool. Moving on,
Yeah. I think a lot of, so the things that have gone well for me is that I have a background that it's pretty wide. I've been spending a lot of time as a performer, writing songs.
Right. So you're describing being kind of brand new at the engineering aspect of it, because that was a recent interest for you. But you've got, decades of playing and performing as a musician.
Yes. So I think the reality of facts is that when you move to another country, you still have to make a living, right? So there's no way around it, right? So for me, I use all the skills I have to pay my bills, and then and that will allow me to have enough time that I can use cultivating my passions. It's finding a right balance. I'm actively playing local gigs with a 90s cover band, which is a party band, and have a lot of fun. I do private event in solo, in acoustic. I do a lot of podcast recording for a Dazzle podcast about from the University of San Diego, when they talk about different diversity challenges of academic people. I work for a medical podcast. So whichever skills that I have in audio and music that I can use, I use it. I don't worry. I tell some of my clients, well, if you pay me my hourly rate and you want me to wash your car, I'll wash your car. I don't care.
Right.
It's like whatever it takes. And yeah.
I mean, I've done so many bizarre audio things, whether it was live sound or, setting up stuff for corporate things or, doing editing. Was doing editing for one client where it was all voiceover bits for safety training modules, for OSHA, which is what is OSCA, the safety organization. Mm-hmm. So it's just these really bland voices going, and I had to deliver everything in this ridiculously low resolution audio format so that it was a tiny sound bite that could go into a digital program where somebody just clicks the yes button or the no button. And it's like, wear your hard hat with the brim facing outward and make sure that you don't press the eject button prematurely or whatever,
You must have listened to it a lot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was ages ago and I just did some of them. Then it was like mind-numbing stuff. But it's all fascinating too because I had all these takeaways. I would learn the power of taking a big long file and using the trim silence feature in Pro Tools so that it kind of breaks it into blocks and then rearranging them and then labeling them quickly and then swapping things out and all that, processing things. And so like there's always these great so if you can do it in your interest, like, the audio, for example, you're doing stuff with musicians as a performer, and I'm sure that it's at least still opens doors to you to meeting people and networking and learning, finding other musicians and, oh, you got a band? Oh, you guys want to make a record? Yeah, I can help you do that. Like, are you finding that performing outside of the studio is still connecting you with opportunities?
To some extent, what I'm realizing that I would say the cover circuits and the original circuits are quite separated. Are very compartmentalized in a sense. Yeah. So there hasn't been much cross-talking between the two.
But aren't there other people that are in the cover band circuit that also would like to be doing more originals?
A lot of them are, yeah. A lot of them
so
are.
It seems like there's always an opportunity to find people and just, hey, let's go over and do an originals night,
Yeah, but I think the most being in an original band and being in the same boat as all the other bands, it's a much stronger signal for collaboration in that sense. That's what I find. But I think the important things is to continue be relevant, continue be active, and try to find ways so your skill set actually can be employable, and there's a difference between a work of passion and putting the bread on the table, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something, but now it kind of escapes me. But it's very important to continue keeping it real, whatever it takes. I mean,
yeah. Well, so one example that comes to mind for me. Let me see if I can pull it up here while we're talking too. I thought I had it up, but my computer removed the thing I had ready. But it's basically you've got a great website. And so I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about that and just about, what it means to try and have something like that as your calling card and make sure that you're, active in that way and making it easy for people to connect with you. I think this is it. Yeah. So let me see if I can do a screen share.
Oh, yeah.
So this is your website. It looks great, so
Thank you.
Especially for somebody who's, you're describing being early in your process. And there's a lot of us who've probably been doing this for a long time. We're like, man, I'd sure wish my website looked looked up to date. So a couple of questions for you would be like, what, where do you even choose to go make a website like this? And, you've got a variety of things here. So it really looks professional. So this gives you a chance to meet people. And then when they ask questions about things or whatever, you can direct them to the website, and then they have a way to reach out to you. Like what did you use for building your website?
I use Wix.
Okay, cool. And it's like you just do a subscription. It's a monthly subscription or something, and it includes everything you need.
Yeah, it's. I started with Wix. I started with a template and then spent some times on it. Really,
Yeah.
I did it, I think, in a week in December originally.
Did you find it hard? I know from doing a little bit of this stuff, sometimes it's very easy to get excited about it, get started, and then immediately get stuck on something. Like, these. You look at these 4 boxes, and you're like, well, what do I put in these 4 boxes? And where do I find an image? I don't want an image that looks like a telephone or a. Seems like they always have pictures of things that are really great if you want to be generic and look like a computer programmer. Or somebody who works in an office.
Was all in the template. I think I changed the color palette to my liking, but that's something that is quite it's same as you said. Like a record is never finished, right?
Yeah,
it's a similar thing. Like I'm by no means I'm a website builder. That it's all a drag and drop, and I did the best because I wanted it. Website to go out. I did that right after I went freelance. Right, okay, I need to have a website, and at that time I was fostering a puppy. Like my wife and I work volunteer for a rescue company local in San Diego. They rescue dogs from Tijuana, Mexico, and occasionally we had to foster some puppies, and I did that while we were fostering these puppies in December, and I basically had to stay on the couch looking after, and I was like typing off and
right
move forward.
Well, I mean, I think that's the key takeaway is, we don't want to have to become a website expert, and we shouldn't have to. We're trying to become an audio expert. So yes, use the template. Use all, like when they tell you this is how the website should look, just be like, great, I'm going to make it look like that, Try and take the easy route. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. I stopped sharing the screen, but you saw it a moment ago. You have a thing at the bottom that says, tell me about your project. And so how does something like that work?
Well, I noticed that it works more when you meet people in person and you talk in person.
Right.
The website, it feels like it's something that you kind of need to have in 2025 to have a business, and to do any kind of activity, you need to be referred. You need to be able to refer to a website. But what I noticed is that the best way to connect with clients, customers, whatever, artists, is just show up physically at their shows and meet them, like in community. And that worked a lot better. Like, especially when you are talking about recording music, it's their art, it's their baby. They are like, and in today's also for most artists, that is a work of passion, and that you're going to put in a lot of work, a lot of money with no guarantee of return. In any case, for for the most of them. So when you're working with their art, with their baby, it's paramount that it's very important that they know, like, and trust you before they hand their babies, right? So
there's my baby jumping off a diving board right there on this mug.
Nice.
She was little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
no, I get it. And so like having that face-to-face connection. But what about just I'm always fascinated by the nerdy, silly questions or mundane question like, well, how do you actually exchange information and then reconnect later with somebody? So I noticed that a lot of people these days, especially younger people, tend to say things to me like, oh, are you on Insta or Instagram? And and then there's just a messaging that goes back and forth that way. I don't do that so much. I use a different app, but like, have you figured out a good way to is that what you use your form for? You say, here's my form, just, type in some of your info right here and then it shows up, or do you use some other method?
Instagram is huge, like especially I think with the younger generation, but even with mine and yours generation, a lot of people use Instagram, and that would be like the most standard way to connect when you meet somebody at the show, like in person. I noticed that Instagram and DMs like help keep it casual in a sense, but still, you're talking business, you're talking things that you might do collaborative together, and but it still keeps in a tone of casual to it, friendly.
Right. So the Instagram thing is like a non-invasive way to connect with people.
Yeah. I find a lot of the conversation with the client go through Instagram at the beginning, and then later on either text or phone call.
Let me continue asking dumb questions. So if you say, are you on Instagram, then you find their Instagram feed, and then what? You follow them?
You follow them. And
that's it? Or is there another way to have a little folder where you can go find all the people that you met out at clubs in San Diego on your Instagram, for example?
I don't know if you can.
Is there a way to keep it organized?
I'm not sure you can. Maybe you do, but I'm not like super expert in using Instagram. I'm as confident with Instagram as a millennial can be. So I know the basic use. Yeah.
I think that if you are sort of, if that's the way you're using it and you're going out to shows, I guess one version is you'll be following these other local bands, and then when you go look at Instagram, you'll see their stuff posting and you're like, cool, and then you can comment on it. Or I went and found a bass player for my record, which I'm still working on. Rockstars, you're getting tired of hearing me say it, so I got to finish that one soon. But I saw her play a show somewhere, and I think I had gotten her name somehow, either at the show or maybe I followed the band on there and then saw her mentioned as the bass player. And so I just went to her channel and messaged her on Instagram and said, hey, are you available for sessions? And I absolutely got a reply that way. So, when you reach out through a message to somebody who's actually using it actively, I feel like it works pretty well. People reach out to me. I don't use it actively all the time. So, I share things on there, but I'm not always, I try to go in and check the messages, but I'm not like a daily message checker there. So apologies if you sent me a message, Rockstars, and I haven't checked it yet, but I will. When I see it, I'll reply.
Yeah,
but it can be a cool way to do it.
Yeah, that's a lot to do also, especially nowadays. And that's something that I discover, and it doesn't come natural to me because I tend to be quite an introvert person. But I noticed that being active on social media, and I'm not referring about doom scrolling, but publishing content and show on Instagram, on the social media, what are you doing to show that you're active. It helps as a social proof. It helps. Right. It helps because then you follow somebody, and then Oh yeah, that's a way that you can then after go and see in chronological order who you followed. So if you want to send a message to somebody that you met like 3 days ago, so I don't remember exactly the name, but you can go and see, oh, that's the person. Then you can see what they're up to, and then it's an opportunity to show what you're up to. And if it's relevant, it becomes like a little virtual community in a sense.
It's a virtual show and tell. It's like, hey, check out my stuff. I'll check out your stuff, which is a good way in that creative world. Well, so Gabe, let me ask you this next question. This is going to be our closing question, but this is one I love to ask all the guests, and you were hinting at it earlier, which is we get to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you get to go back in time. Maybe you don't have to go very far back. I don't know. Or maybe you go back, 2 decades when you're starting out in music, and you say, listen, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice do you feel like going back and giving yourself if you could?
I'll probably tell myself to don't hesitate. Like just go out there and do it, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. That's a trait that I really admire of people. They just do it instead of overthinking too much on the opportunities, or maybe self-doubt. I will tell myself back then and even now to like get rid of self-doubt and just go and do your thing, and don't worry about other people would think or will think, because that really doesn't even matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, good advice. And you were just talking about Instagram and social media. So last question, closing question here too is, how can the Rockstars find more about you and your music? So of course we'll have links to his SoundCloud in the show notes. I highly suggest you go check it out, Rockstars. Especially the original music there's some cool stuff in there, and your playing and singing sounds great. So you got a great singing voice, Gabe.
Thank you.
Where would you like the Rockstars to go check out stuff about you? What if they happen to be in San Diego, or they just want to collaborate, or other people are looking for somebody to do the original side of music and collaborate with, or hire somebody to mix their record? I mean, your mixing reel is in the SoundCloud too, and it sounds really good.
Thank you. Yeah. Gabe Dagrezio, it's the name of my website. So probably you need to read the show.
Gabe the Great. It sounds like Gabe the Great. Gabe the Great CO, dude. That's great.
Yeah. You can check out how it's spelled in the show notes, and then either GabeDagrezio.com or at Gabe Dagrezio on Instagram. That will be my handle, and my email will be gabe@gabedagrezio.com. That's it.
It's pretty straightforward. It's DAGREZIO, Rockstars.
Correct. Yes.
Well, Gabe, thank you so much for joining us on Recording Studio Rockstars. It's great to meet you. I'm so happy that we got to meet at NAMM, and you don't know how much of an honor it is when somebody comes up and says, randomly I haven't met before, and just says, I know your voice.
Man, that's unbelievable. It's like I listen a lot of your podcast as a consumer to learn, so thank you for all your work, because listening to your interview helped me a lot in growing and with my profession and learning more. So thank you so much. And being on the podcast is like, kind of joining the bands that you always listen to. It's like it's great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, man. Thanks. Thank you, and thanks for listening. And I appreciate the compliment on it too.
Thank you so much. All
right, man. We'll see you around the studio. Rockstars, thank you for watching and joining us today. And again, this is, been Gabe's story of, what it means to, to come from one part of music and then enter the studio world and get started and, do it in a whole new country. So if that's you as well, this may feel very close to you. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Kick that like button if you enjoyed this, and leave a comment in and just let us know, is that your journey? Are you having any challenges just kind of going from one part of audio into another? Are there things about this that you think would help you out? And if you have any questions for me or Gabe, let us know and we'll see you there. So thanks for watching. Gabe, can't wait to see you around the studio again, dude.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible: iZotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, and SAE Institute. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon codes at iZotope.com and nativeinstruments.com. Use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plug-in purchase. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Also, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it's a great way for you to help support this show. I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for watching and listening, Rockstars. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.